here, non-recourse contracts and grants made to, oops, all right, I had to do the non-recourse contracts and grants made to small U.S.-owned companies, develop new products and services based on innovative, unproven concepts and technologies. So it's, by small business standards, it's a fair amount of money. It's counted in the billions, even though we talk about trillions a lot of times in federal programs and unfortunately in terms of deficits, but it is a lot of money for small businesses. Non-recourse simply means you don't repay the money, you don't give up equity. And those are two reasons you ought to like SBIR. You don't repay it, you don't give up equity. Some of the awards are grants, some are contracts. You'll hear from company agencies today that make both contracts as well as those that make grants. You go, what's the difference? There is actually an important difference we'll talk about. You got to be small. Fortunately, it's a real simple definition. It's 500 or fewer employees. So most of us are going to fit that category. And U.S. owned is a simple majority ownership. So 51% or more owned by U.S. citizens or permanent resident aliens, and you qualify. People think of SBIR as an R&D program. They're only about half right. The real purpose of SBIR is ultimately to develop either new products and services or improvements to existing products and services. But it is based on R&D, and that R&D needs to be, to the last bullet point, innovative. And an area that I find people mess up on a lot is it needs to be on unproven concepts and technologies. So you want to propose something that is unproven. You literally do not know whether it's going to work. And that's actually part of what justifies the taxpayer getting involved through SBIR in funding these projects. And you go, okay, so I think I kind of understand SBIR. What's this STTR thing? Well, again, we could spend all this time just talking about the difference between SBIR and STTR, but cut to the chase, I think this is the key difference. SBIR allows you to subcontract some of the money to another entity, including nonprofits like universities. While SBIR allows it, STTR mandates it, requires it. You have to team with a nonprofit. So STTR, which stands for Small Business Technology Transfer, requires that you team with a nonprofit, typically a university, but sometimes a federal lab or another nonprofit entity. Eligibility, again, 500 or fewer employees, primarily U.S. owned. You got to be for profit. Now, thank goodness for many of us, it's for profit as opposed to being necessarily profitable, because we know that's two different things, right? So as long as you're organized for profit, you're good. And you got to have somebody who, upon award of the SBIR STTR project, will become what is called primarily employed by the business. And primarily employed typically means working less than, not equal to or less, but less than half time anywhere else. And they have to be technically qualified to run the project as the principal investigator. So they've got to have credentials and qualifications that show that they're capable of running this project. Now in STTR, there's a little bit of slack on that last point where the principal investigator can actually be primarily employed at the university rather than at the small business. One exception of that, National Science Foundation does not accept that. And again, to me, it seems obvious because it's the small business innovation research and small business technology transfer programs. The recipients have to be small businesses. Universities can be on the team as subcontractors, but they cannot be recipients directly of SBIR STTR awards. Programs both are organized into 3 phases. Phase 1 is where you are going to get started 99.9% of the time. And it's to take that unproven idea of yours and prove that it works, prove that it actually meets the need, prove that it solves the problem. And for this, you can receive a relatively modest amount of money, varies by agency and even by components within some of the bigger agencies, but it's somewhere, $75,000 to maybe $300,000 for a few months up to a year's worth of effort. So it's not a lot of time, not a lot of money. So you got to be very careful you don't over propose on that phase 1. Some of you in phase 1 will prove your idea doesn't work. It's infeasible. That's okay. That's not a failure. That's part of the program, is kind of ferreting out those projects that are feasible and those that are not feasible. And if you're not feasible, pat on the back, good work, nice try, you're done. Your SBIR STTR project terminates at that point. So it's not a failure, but I hope that doesn't happen to you, because it prevents you from going to the next phase, which is phase 2, which is obviously where we want to go as a phase 1 winner, because it's more money and more time. We're talking now hundreds of thousands, maybe multiple millions of dollars, and we're talking maybe up to 2 years time frame. So a lot more resources to have a much more intensive effort. You'll hear this referred to as phase 2 being the primary or the main R&D activity, or the principal R&D activity. And frankly, it's a lot of the stuff that you would love to have done in phase 1, but didn't have the time or money to do it. And you're advancing the project towards commercialization, which then becomes phase 3. Take the results of phase 1 and phase 2, and with many times additional resources, push the project into commercialization as a product, service, or combination of the two. SBIR does not fund phase 3. It funds phase 1s, it funds phase 2s. So the way that you fund phase 3 is either with the traditional sources that you've looked at, whether it's friends, family, and fools, or angel investors, or VCs, or whatever it may be, or in some of the agencies, and here's where grant versus contract agencies differ. The contract agencies, such as NASA or the military, may look to fund your phase 3 out of their non-SBIR funds, because they want to be your customer at that point. No, come on there. Little screen. I was on a roll there. There we go. Okay. Contract versus grant. I guess it was so shocked at that last statement, it just froze there. Two types of agencies. Some are contract, some are grant. Contract agencies have a very specific mission. The usual examples, as I gave just now, are with the Department of Defense and NASA. They've got a very specific mission. They've got a very specific problem with that mission. And they come to you saying, here's the problem. Can you solve it? Do you have a creative, innovative solution to solve our problem? And you have to respond to that problem, because that's what they want to spend their SBIR funds on, STTR funds on, is solving that problem. So you find out what the problem is, you come in with a creative solution, and hopefully get funded to implement, or at least try that creative solution to the problem. The grant agencies and the classical grant agencies include National Institutes of Health, National Science Foundation. They want to support good ideas. And you go, that's kind of broad. Could you give me a little bit of guidance? Well, National Institutes of Health, we want to fund life sciences. We want to fund health. We want to fund medicine. Well, again, those are pretty broad topics, but that's typical of a grant agency, to give you very broad topics. And then, and I apologize if I'm using Stephanie's terminology here, but investigator driven. In other words, you come in with the idea. You come in and tell us what you want to work on, what you think would be a good project and a valuable project. And then the grant agency considers that. So again, contract versus grant. To give you an idea of who are the agencies that participate in SBIR STTR, as well as who are grant versus contract, as well as the size, the relative magnitude, this slide actually answers all of those questions. Very busy slide. But if you look to the left side, the pie chart tells us that the military is almost 1/2 of the entire SBIR STTR program in terms of budget, and they make their awards as contracts, so they'll be problem solving. Behind that would be Department of Health and Human Services, of which NIH is the primary component. Predominantly grants with a little bit of a contract program in there, followed by Department of Energy, National Science Foundation, and NASA round out the big 5 agencies. 3 of them, NIH, DOE, and NSF being grant agencies, 2 of them, DOD and NASA, being contract agencies. Then you've got a whole slew, namely 6 agencies that are kind of in the little thin, see the little thin slices up there, like when you go to that fancy restaurant in Birmingham and you order a cheesecake for dessert, and it comes out and it's so thin you can see through it. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Those are the slices up there. So what that includes Department of Homeland Security, Department of Agriculture, Transportation, commerce, education, and April's small but mighty agency, the Environmental Protection Agency. And again, if you look on the right side, based on green versus blue coloration, you can see who is a contract agency shown in blue, and those that are grant agencies shown in green. I put this arrow in because we, and this is data from 2019, the last year for which we have comprehensive data across the agencies. It showed Department of Agriculture as one of those agencies that does not have an STTR program. Well, guess what? This year, FY 2023 to agriculture now has an STTR program, making a handful of STTR awards. So they'll now be moved to the upper part of this chart. When do they want proposals? This gives you an idea of the schedule. It's basically all around the clock, all around the calendar. It's all times of the year you're going to have agencies that are looking for and receiving proposals. The dates do change somewhat year to year. So they're not, USDA, for example, is not set on July 25th every year putting out their solicitation. It's kind of a mid to late July thing, you know, and then they'll give you a specific date each year. And typically the agencies give you 60 to 90 days to respond with a proposal, a deadline with the proposal. So the release date here is when the request for proposals, or using SBIR STTR jargon, the solicitation comes out, and then the closing date is when your proposal is due. Note some agencies have multiple deadlines per year. So the DoD Defense would ordinarily have 3 deadlines per year. Now notice one of them is marked out. That's because of something we will be talking about today, which is the reauthorization of SBIR STTR. Because of the slowness of that reauthorization, DoD chose to not issue the last of their 3 solicitations in fiscal year 2022. Energy puts out a couple per year. NIH actually has 4 per year. They have 1 for the contracts, which is out right now. And then they'll put out a grant general solicitation or omnibus solicitation in June with the 3 due dates shown there. And those are, by the way, standard due dates, September 5th, January 5th, April 5th. Although this year it's September 6th because next Monday is the 5th and 5th is Labor Day, official federal holiday, so they slip to the next day. And then NSF, bottom of the slide, has 3, and to be a little bit different, NSF loves being different, they have 3 windows. So the current window opened on July 1st, and they will shut that window on October 26th. And NSF will tell you that anytime during that window, you can submit your proposal. Now, of course, you have to submit a pre-proposal pitch, which I'm sure we'll hear about during the course of the day. But that's the jargon used at NSF, is there are windows of opportunity there. STTR, very similar. In fact, many of the dates are the same. Notice we've added USDA down there so that you can see that they have an STTR program, as well as the traditional ones, Defense, Energy, Department of Health Human Services / NIH, NASA, and NSF. Homeland Security actually had an STTR program briefly, and because it's they only have to have STTR if they reach a certain size in their extramural R&D budgets, they dropped out of STTR a few years back. Thought you might want to know what your chances of success are. It's interesting how people react differently to this chart. If you are a small business, you look at it and you go, oh man, you mean to tell me my chances of a phase 1 are only about 20%? Oh man. Now, if you're an academic, you know what you say? Oh, wow, my chances are 20%. Wow, that's really great. So it's a different perspective. The point is, it's a highly competitive program. And in phase 1, when you submit your proposal and you're sitting there waiting to get the success, the notification of success, chances are real good you're not going to get one. You're going to get a dear John. You're going to get a rejection. And that's the way it happens because it is such a competitive program. Now, you're going to have a choice at that point. You can wad up the email and throw it in the trash and say, to heck with that, I'm not going to try anymore. Or you say, by darn it, okay, I think I learned what I should have done differently and I'm going after it again. Perseverance is extremely important if you're going to compete and succeed in SBIR STTR. It may take a few shots before you succeed. Now notice the red bars are phase 2's, much higher probability of success in phase 2. I'm a little flabbergasted on DoD over there, the first set of bars, over 70% success on phase 2's. That's wow. I mean, I'm a little shocked at that, but that's what the data show for FY fiscal year 19. Again, it varies by agency, but notice it is much higher for phase 2 than phase 1. So one of the things you want to be thinking about is you get the foot in the door with phase 1, you work very hard, you resubmit, you submit multiple proposals, finally get a phase 1, get your foot in the door, and then think about working very hard to convert that phase 1 into a phase 2. Reauthorization. Periodically, SBIR STTR have to be renewed or they go away. Believe it or not, SBIR has been around since 1982, STTR since 1992. They're temporary programs. They're not permanent programs of the federal government. And therefore, periodically, Congress has to go in and renew them or they disappear. And that renewal is referred to as a reauthorization. The last reauthorization occurred, interestingly, during the lame duck Congress between the time that Trump was elected and the time that Trump took office. So it's been a number of years, and it's odd that during a lame duck Congress, they actually get anything done, but they actually reauthorized SBIR STTR at that point. They reauthorized it through September 30th of 2022. Now, I've been showing this slide for years and pointing how far out into the future 9/30/22 is. Well, guess what? Here we are 8/30/22, and we're talking about a program that expires 9/30/22. And you say, so when's it going to be reauthorized? Well, that's a darn good question. We're coming down to the wire, and it's not the first time we've come down to the wire, but people are concerned that maybe this is a little shakier this time than it has been in the past. So will there be a last minute compromise before the termination of the programs on September 30th? Or some have said maybe SBIR STTR just terminate and Congress will restart them next fiscal year. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not betting on number 2 because I don't bet on anything when it comes to expecting Congress to do something. I think that could be very dangerous to expect that or to assume that. So how are the agencies reacting? But they're in a very strange position because they're here trying to promote and encourage a program that may not be around in the future. NIH, and I'm sure Stephanie will talk more about this, I believe deserves kudos for really trying to keep business as usual. We're going to continue to put out our solicitation, our FOA. We're going to continue to talk with small businesses. We're going to continue moving forward, at least in the short term, with our SBIR STTR programs. Department of Energy, USDA put out their solicitation or FOA and basically said, here it is, but if it doesn't get reauthorized, we're withdrawing this thing on September 30th. And the military put this out relatively recently, the red typed text down there, set to expire, programs not reauthorized, DoD cannot continue to publish these solicitations and cannot continue to fund new or ongoing SBIR STTR projects. I'm not sure I totally agree with them in terms of cannot do that, or they're just saying we will not. But the point is, DoD has said if we don't get a reauthorization, then they're not going to continue their SBIR STTR programs beyond that September 30th date. A good place to kind of keep up on this very fluid situation is the Small Business Technology Council at sbtc.org, a membership organization, a industry group for SBIR STTR, if you will. very active in the reauthorization effort, and can, I think, probably be your best place to kind of keep on top of it. So which agency funds your area of interest? So what we've found for years is that people kind of pigeonhole agencies. And a good example, let's pick on EPA. So about a little better than halfway down on the left side, you'll see EPA, and come across, and there's a column for environmental and natural resources, and you're going, well, that makes sense. You know, EPA has topics in environmental and natural resources. Okay, now look up and down that column. Every agency has topics in environmental and natural resources. And you look across, EPA is not just in environmental and natural resources. They do things related to energy, recognizing that that has an environmental impact. They do things in education and training, realizing there's an education training component to environmental and so on. So the point is, you shouldn't pigeonhole yourself into a single agency. A very common one in this, related to what we're doing today, life sciences. A lot of people say, yep, that's NIH. NIH is the one that funds life sciences. I should apply to NIH. And sure enough, as you can see from the meatball, yeah, NIH funds life sciences. But again, who else funds life sciences? Everybody. All 11 agencies in recent history have funded life science proposals. So again, one reason why we have 7 different agencies participating today, and we are incredibly lucky, I hope you all realize that, to have 7 of the 11 agencies in this federal program participating in today's webinar. We have 7 different agencies because all of them have interests in the life sciences, in biotechnology in one way or another. With that, why don't I go ahead and I think we can move into our, we're actually ahead of schedule. I don't know how that happened. We must be, we'll have to have a committee later on look at why that happened. We shouldn't have that happen, but we'll take care of it. Let's go ahead and move into our overviews of those 7 agencies. And again, per Rachel's comments, we'll have kind of a quick kind of 7 to 10 minute overview by each. And then you'll have the opportunity to join each in a breakout room for a more extended 30-minute session where they can give you more specifics about their program. I'd like to introduce as our first agency speaker, and what I did when I made the list was just put everyone in alphabetical order by last name. So Stephanie came to the top of the head. Stephanie Fertig is she is the leader of the NIH SBIR STTR program. So this is the 2nd largest program in the SBIR STTR program, and you have the pleasure of being able to hear from the head honcho. She did, prior to taking the position over the NIH program, and I didn't realize this, but she was over the SBIR program at the National Institute of Neurological Disorder and Stroke for almost 10 years. I didn't realize it had been that long, but obviously very knowledgeable about SBIR, STTR, and NIH. And I will tell you, just based on my recent sitting in one of Stephanie's sessions at the national conference, if you ever want to attend a session with an engaging speaker, you need to sit in on Stephanie's. She's got a real a stage presence. I just really can't describe it, but just a very high energy, friendly approach to presentation. So would highly recommend that. So Stephanie, let me turn it over to you.
Well, I feel that's a really hard, comment to follow because it's not the same on virtual, but I will do my best. So I'm going to share my screen here.
There you go. It's up.
It's up. Do you see just the slides?
I see just the slides, except for us down the side over here. So I think you're good.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for. So I'm so happy to be part of the event today and talk a little bit about the small business programs, not just at NIH, but I'm going to touch on the rest of HHS as well. We only have a limited amount of time. So I really do encourage you to visit our website, actually recently redesigned. I think I can say that for up to a year, seed.nih.gov. Wealth of information, including what our current funding opportunities are, as well as if you're brand new to the SBIR and STTR programs at NIH, or actually more broadly at HHS, we have a wealth of information about how the application process works as well. Now, I mentioned that while NIH is the largest component of HHS, we're not the only component of HHS. CDC, FDA, and ACL all have SBIR programs. NIH is the only one that has an SBIR and STTR, but the other three, CDC, FDA, and ACL, although they're smaller, are still very interested in receiving applications in their specific mission area. And one of the big myths that I do get to dispel in this talk is that just because a program has a smaller budget doesn't mean that it is more competitive. And in fact, the reverse may be true. They may get far fewer applications, and so they may be very eager and interested in your great technology or innovation. So again, I encourage you to take a look at those other parts of HHS as well. Now, the NIH mission can really be summarized as turning discoveries into health. And the NIH small business programs really help get those great innovations into the hands of the patients, clinicians, caregivers, and researchers that need them. We do have an SBIR and an STTR program at NIH. One of the major differences between us and some of the other agencies is that the scope and review criteria for the SBIR and STTR are the same at NIH. All told, it's about $1.2 billion. Remember that myth I just told you about? Well, SBIR and STTR, if you look across NIH, similar success rates, although some institutes are different than others. But it's important to note that just because the program is smaller doesn't mean it's more competitive. Again, really important to come in for the one that makes the most sense for your technology or company. Now, one of the major differences, again, between us and some of the other agencies is that we tend not to be the final purchasers of the technologies that you're developing. Again, we're expecting that those are going to go out into the marketplace, but we're not going to be the ones to buy them. And so really our companies utilize the small business programs to help support that proof of concept and research development to de-risk technologies and innovations so they can attract partners and investors that can then help take their technologies to market. In some cases, we also do have technologies that go right off after the phase 2 and do go to market, but for the most part, many of our technologies do require additional support, funding, or partnership. We support a wide range of technologies and innovations, from cancer to minority health and health disparities. We support individuals across the country. And so I encourage you to go to our small business success stories. You can see kind of the depth and breadth of the kinds of things that we support. There are 24 different institutes and centers within the NIH that support the SBIR and STTR programs. And we cover a lot of different ground. As you can see, digital learning, that's covered. Research tools, that's covered, in addition to therapeutics and diagnostics. We talked a little bit about the phases. It's really important to note that when we're talking about life sciences and health, these phases are not related to clinical trials phases. It's an unfortunate difference in the nomenclature, and it's this weird similarity that we deal with. The phase 1 is a feasibility study, phase 2 further research and development. We don't define those. Those are really broad. That's on purpose. We're fairly flexible. We do have something called a fast track that allows you to combine the phase 1 and phase 2 into one proposal. And we also have a direct to phase 2 that was mentioned. Regardless of how you get to the phase 2, some of our institutes and centers have additional programs to help bridge that gap between the phase 2 and commercial marketplace partner or investor. That's that follow-on phase 2B or the commercialization readiness pilot. I get a lot of questions about budget, like a lot of questions about budget. So I'm putting the small business guidelines here, but you can see that we do have a waiver from the Small Business Administration to exceed these for selected topics. And that's because we recognize that often life sciences takes more money and time to get to the point, to get to that inflection point, to de-risk your innovation and technology. I keep saying only some institutes and centers participate. Institutes and centers do things, a little bit differently. And that's because each institute and center at NIH does utilize the program a little bit differently. If you take nothing else from what I'm about, my whole conversation today, please contact us well in advance of application. It's really important to talk with us because there are some differences across the NIH and how the program is utilized. As was mentioned, the majority of our funding goes to investigator-initiated applications. And thank you, Jim, for defining investigator-initiated applications. Now I don't have to. But we do also have a contract solicitation that was just released. But I think it bears mentioning one more time that the majority of our funding goes through that omnibus solicitation. Once you start talking about the contract solicitation or specific solicitations, not all institutes and centers participate in those. And in fact, some institutes choose to basically go through the omnibus solicitation because they want what's the best and most exciting innovation. They want you to come to them with their best ideas. We have a number of resources on our website to help you submit your application. That includes application instructions, annotated form set, sample applications. Some institutes and centers also have participated in an applicant assistance program. So there's a wide variety of resources out there to help you determine what needs to go into that application. And again, this is for grants. We do have a peer review process. The only reason I'm touching on this is for a peer review, everybody gets feedback, and you'll get that feedback about 3 months in. Please be prepared to resubmit. Even if it's a long road and it's a hard journey, you may get that feedback. And as you saw from the percentages, not everybody gets it on their first try, but that's okay. Resubmission works. Take a look at that review, reach out, talk to us, and resubmit. We really want to encourage resubmission. It's normal, it happens all the time, and that is a part of our process. I know we have a limited amount of time. I just want to touch on the fact that we have more than money. We do provide a wide variety of innovator support because, again, we recognize we're not the final purchasers of the technology. So we've got regulatory and business and development consultants, partnering and investing opportunities, entrepreneurial support programs. We have a wide variety of ways that we can help you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. We're reaching that kind of 7-minute time frame to keep things going. So if there are any last words before we move on.
I would just say the most important piece of advice is to talk to us ahead of time. Make sure to contact us. Happy to talk with you. Make sure to connect you with the right person. And really, this is the most important slide, is to reach out and talk with us. With the exception of the contract solicitation, there are specific rules about that. But again, most of what we do is grants. So reach out and talk to us.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think it's so appropriate that even though it was alphabetical order, the NIH did get to go first, because I think the NIH just as an agency is very familiar to our industry. So I'm excited to draw that parallel between this and other NIH funding mechanisms, but now I'm excited for us to also learn about other agencies and how they support bioinnovation. So Helena, Megan is going to do a quick introduction for you, and then we'll hear a little bit about the Air Force.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Megan Adams with BIO Alabama, and I just want to say thank you all for being here and taking the time to participate in this funding workshop. Our next agency is the Air Force, and our speaker will be Helena Krusik. She is the Deputy Engagement Lead for AF Ventures within AF Works. Helena, if you're ready.
Yes. Can you all see my screen okay?
It's just black right now.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
It says
it's started.
Oh,
yeah, so it's
yeah.
Says I was paused. 1 second. Might have to start again. All right, let me just stop and try it again. Gotta love technology, right?
Mhm.
It says I'm paused. It might be on your end. You might need to unpause me. Can you see the screen?
No, still says it started screen sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says I'm paused. I don't know if there's someone that has to unpause me or that might be something on the organizer side of the house.
Right. Over here, it says that you can share everyone's able to share their screen. Stephanie, are you still well, no, because we're seeing your started screen sharing.
Yeah.
So it's not being held up by anyone else sharing their screen.
Really, because it shows that I am not screen sharing.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think it is you, Stephanie, because we're seeing Helena's screen here. It says Helena Krusek has started screen sharing.
Okay, let me just download this and I'll send it back over to you real quick, and then I'll talk through them real quick. Or maybe perhaps if it's good for the sake of time, perhaps the next person can go ahead of me and we can circle back around. I know there's a lot of content in here, so at your discretion.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's go ahead and just as a control also, we'll move on to Genevieve Lind with NOAA. Genevieve, if that's okay with you, or Dr. Lind, if that's okay with you.
Yep, should be good. I'm ready to go.
All right. Megan, would you introduce Genevieve or Dr. Lind really fast?
Yes, Dr. Genevieve Lind is the SBIR program manager at NOAA.
All right. Okay.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay.
See your screen.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. I was talking away over here. Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. I'm Genevieve, and I am the program manager for the NOAA SBIR program. In this presentation, I'm going to give you an overview of the NOAA SBIR program and then leave you with some resources if you're interested in learning more or connecting with us. Just a note, NOAA does not have an STTR program. And I also wanted to note that NOAA and NIST are often grouped together under the Department of Commerce when people are talking about the SBIR program at a high level. But I just wanted to be clear that NOAA and NIST have independent programs with different solicitations, different requirements, and different agency missions. So the mission at NOAA, which is founded in science, service, and stewardship, is to understand and predict changes in climate, weather, oceans, and coasts, to share that knowledge and information with others, and to conserve and manage coastal and marine ecosystems and resources. NOAA divides its mission into 10 different mission areas, and those are weather, climate, oceans and coasts, fisheries, research, marine and aviation, charting, satellites, sanctuary, and education. And those 10 mission areas are covered by 6 different line offices, which are Oceanic and Atmospheric Research, National Weather Service, National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, National Marine Fisheries Service, National Ocean Service, and the Office of Marine and Aviation Operations. What the NOAA SBIR program is looking for are proposals for highly innovative products and services with strong commercial potential that fit within these NOAA mission areas. So let's get into some of the key logistical details of the SBIR program at NOAA. For fiscal year 22, we had an estimated budget of $11 million, which we administer through a grant mechanism. We have one solicitation per phase per year, which is posted on grants.gov, and that is also where applications will be submitted. For phase 1, we are looking for new ideas that are ready for feasibility or proof of concept testing. These are 6-month awards for up to $150,000. We typically award between 15 and 30 awards per year, and our success rate is between 10 and 20% for phase 1. Our phase 2 competition is a limited competition for phase 1 awardees only. These awards support full research and development of a technology for up to 24 months and up to $500,000. Because it's a limited competition and we award between 10 and 15 per year, the success rate is higher and tends to be between 50 and 75%. Again, as Jim mentioned, the goal for phase 3 is to pursue commercialization objectives that follow from the phase 1 and phase 2 research and development. And this can include government acquisition, private sector investment, product sales, etc. Again, the important thing being that phase 3 efforts are not funded with SBIR dollars. So we've made a number of changes to our program in recent years, and as a result, we've moved towards issuing broad topics that align with the NOAA mission space. For fiscal year 22, our topics included climate adaptation and mitigation, weather-ready nation, healthy oceans, and resilient coastal communities and economies. NOAA also has what are referred to as science and technology focus areas, which are priority areas we are interested in. I like to think of these as tools that we are prioritizing in order to solve problems within the NOAA mission space. In the terms that Jim was using earlier, we use a grant mechanism, so we are looking for your good ideas. NOAA does issue phase 3 contracts, so we can be an acquisition agency, but we're primarily looking for technologies for the SBIR program that have broader commercial potential beyond NOAA. So as you can probably tell, the mission at NOAA is really broad, and as we say, spans from the surface of the sun to the bottom of the sea. So the types of technologies that we support vary widely. For example, the red drone in the middle center at the top of the slide was developed as a disaster response drone for underwater ecosystem mapping and searching in extreme locations. Or in the center on the right, the radar image is a technology that provides real-time information about hazardous weather and delivers personalized weather warning notifications. Or on the bottom row, second from the right, this is a low-cost air quality sensor that provides increased data accessibility and combats air inequality. I don't highlight these specific technologies to limit you to ideas in those particular areas, but to demonstrate the wide variety of technologies that fit within the NOAA mission space. Because it does cover a lot of ground, it can be challenging sometimes to tell if your technology might be a fit for the NOAA mission space. I do recommend talking to us in advance, but we have also introduced a letter of intent as part of our application process, which is just a brief description of the technology and its commercial potential. And we provide feedback on whether it's likely to be a fit for the mission, the SBIR program, and the specific solicitation. We do provide that feedback, and for fiscal year 22, the feedback was given about a month after letters of intent were submitted, and there was another approximately 6 weeks before the full application was due. I wanted to end with some tips for developing a successful application for the NOAA SBIR program. My first piece of advice is to read and follow the instructions. Everything you need to know about what needs to be part of your application package is in that notice of funding opportunity, so make sure you're reading that carefully and answering all the questions and providing all the required information. My second piece of advice is to pay attention to the review criteria when you're developing your proposal. At NOAA, we're looking for science, innovation, commercialization, and the qualifications of your team. So you want to make sure you're addressing all of those in your proposal. Additionally, you want to make sure you get started and submit early and know the agency specifics, because both of those are important in developing a successful application. I will leave you with some additional information if you want to follow up and learn more about the program. You can email us at noaa.sbir@noaa.gov, or my email is on the slide, genevieve.lind@noaa.gov. You can also find lots of great information and resources on our website, which is techpartnerships.noaa.gov/SBIR. And you can sign up for our email list on our website, and that's the first place we send information about new solicitations that are available. Finally, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn at the NOAA Technology Partnerships Office and on Twitter at NOAA Innovate. Thanks very much, and I look forward to answering any questions in the breakout sessions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lind. And right on time, you get a gold star for that. Let's go back. I have slides for Air Force, so I'm going to share my screen if Helena is ready to go.
Yes. Ready when you are.
All right. Do you see this?
Yes, I am. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. Apologies for the issues. Technology appears to be out for all of us today. So again, my name is Helena Krusek. I'm the Deputy Engagement Lead for AFWorks and AF Ventures, and I'm here to talk to you today about the DAF SBIR Sitter program and how we work with small businesses. Next slide. So first and foremost, I like to frame this just to really help make sure that everyone understands who we are and what we do. So we are the Department of the Air Force's Commercial Investment Group. We fund emerging technologies to rapidly transition advanced capabilities to airmen and guardians. Next slide. Our vision is a transformed industrial base that empowers airmen and guardians. Next slide. And we do this by incentivizing for-profit investment in national security interests by matching emerging commercial solutions with DAF problems. That's a very fancy way of saying that we essentially leverage SBIR and SITR funds to provide contracts to small businesses to provide prototypes and different types of work to DAF organizations in order to help find mechanisms to better work with us through the acquisitions process. And I'll get into what that means in other slides. So next slide, please. All right. So when people think of AFWorks, they think of us as sort of an ambiguous organization, but really it's very straightforward. And we have a very direct mission of creating an expanded portfolio of capabilities, not just for the warfighter, as mentioned, but also to help grow the national GDP. We're a three-part organization: AFWorks Spark, Prime, and AF Ventures. Each of us working with a different segment of either the internal Air Force community or the external community to help find need statements, fund them, and then deliver that innovation to our airmen and guardians. And I make sure to keep saying guardians because I also want folks to remember that we are also under this organization responsible for SpaceWorks. So my organization where I sit there, our role is expanding technology. We take different needs from across the Air Force and the Space Force. We bring those needs statements to the private sector, and then we offer those solicitations as mechanisms through which those small businesses can get involved in the acquisitions process. I'm happy to answer questions in the breakout room about AFWorks Spark and AFWorks Prime if you have them, but just know that we are a three-part organization that provides a lot of different resources to the small business community. Next slide. So you guys already spoke about this. Go ahead. Next slide, please. The reason I wanted to show this slide is because I wanted folks to also see the organization and how this has changed over time. AFWorks launched in 2018 with the open topic, and that's really what we've become the most well known for. We're the most prolific users of it, and that open topic concept is one that is really well known in this community because of that open door for technology that it creates, really that technology agnostic opportunity for small business to tell us what we should know. We've grown and developed since there. The Center of Excellence kicked off in 2019 and merged into AFWorks 2.0, where AF Ventures, my team, was birthed in 2020. SpaceWorks, that organization that does exactly what we do for the Space Force, came about in 2021. And here we are today as AF Ventures, where we are responsible for not just the open topic, but also specific topic and Strat by TAC-FI, which are the big programs and different entry points through which you as a small business can work with us. Next slide. All right, so I mentioned we have those three different tools. This is a really helpful, just quick chart for you to understand the differences between the three and how they apply to each of the things that you might be interested in. As I mentioned, that open topic, we've been the most prolific users of this, and this represents that technology agnostic open door for you as industry to tell us what we should be buying. We release a lot of award funding through this open topic mechanism, but it really only represents one tool in the suite of contracts and acquisition that we offer to small businesses. On the other side of that coin is the specific topic. And this is one that we've absorbed through the Center of Excellence, and this is what's known sort of as the legacy contracts that the Air Force has done in the past. Essentially what this is it is a clearly defined niche technology need. And it is two sides of the same coin for acquisitions. The open topic is there to help make sure that industry can tell us what we need. Specific topic is there to help make sure that really explicit defense use cases have a place and that they don't get left out of the equation. Because the unique thing about the open topic is that we look at a lot of different criteria to help gauge technology. What that means is that sometimes those pieces of tech that can be not quite as commercially ready, right? Think things like nuclear weapons technology, or really specific pieces of hardware that go into things like, the different vehicles that we're launching. Those can often have a hard time finding what they need explicitly out of the open topic. So we've out of this open topic. So we've relaunched the specific topic to help ensure the airmen and guardians are finding everything they need with different levels of specification across the contracting space. Last one on here is the StratFi and TACFi programs. That stands for Strategic Funding Increase Program and Tactical Funding Increase Programs. Think of these essentially as phase 2B funding efforts that are there to help get your prototype across the finish line with the ultimate intention of getting to phase 3 sole source authority transition. Next slide, please. So I know we're running short on time, and I want to make sure we can just even leave this slide up for the remainder of the presentation, because this is the one that helps the most, I think. One of the things you've heard here today is that the SBIR and SITR programs have been around for a long time, and also that each of the different agencies has their own mechanisms and preferences for how they work with those contracts. This is a really great summary about how all of those programs work together and how it applies to you as the small businesses and university and innovation partners helping to try to get into the SBIR SITR front door. So it works the same way. Phase 1, phase 2 flow directly into each other. We do have that unique qualifier with the StratFi TACFi programs, which again do represent that phase 2B effort. But what's unique about what we do is, again, that we have the open topic and the specific topic, which represent two sides of that same contracting coin, and also just different intentions, right? The main goal here with the open topic is that it is an open opportunity for you to present what you think we need, and then go out and find that potential customer and end user. With the specific topic, we do that legwork for you to identify a customer and end user that need the thing that you are looking to provide. And you work directly with them, and there's a lot less legwork to help continue on that process of customer discovery. So this is something really useful for those, those that have something that's a bit more niche, right? That might not be as commercially advanced. We're also seeing, particularly in things like the biotech and health tech space, that this one can be really valuable because of that big catalyst energy and that higher, that longer rate of return that it takes for biotech to take. It can take a lot more funding at the earlier stages for those biotech products to get a foothold. And so the beauty of the specific topic, specifically for those thinking about things like biotech, is that it creates a bit more reliable of a stream of contacts throughout the process, working with designated customers and end users to help ensure your transition through the program, and also helping to improve your visibility to other potential customers and end users. That's something I'm happy to talk about in the breakout rooms afterwards here. But again, just know that the intention of all of these things is to result in that phase 3 transition, which is really just an easier contracting mechanism, leveraging the de-risking mechanisms of the SBIR and SITR programs to put new technology from folks like yourselves into the hands of the Air Force and the Space Force. So I see that I'm literally right at time. I'm happy to take these slides if my presentation ability sticks around into the breakout rooms. You're welcome to come ask me more questions about that. I do want to make sure that we stay close on time, because I know there's a lot of really good presentations here. So happy to answer any questions in the chat, and I'll also bring this presentation with me to that session, and I'll defer over to the next group.
Thanks so much, Helena. And I am just realizing what Jim said is how far ahead we are on our schedule. So I apologize ahead of time for making y'all, be so strict. We do have a little bit of leeway, but I think what we'll end up doing is having a little bit longer break for people to grab food if they're hungry or something like that before the breakout session.
That's okay. More time means more time for discussion. So all good.
Okay, great. I think we will save NSF for last. Alistair had something come up, so we're going to see if he's able to show up at the very end. If not, Jim is very capable of covering for the NSF. So April Richards with the EPA, are you ready?
Sure.
All right, we'll let Megan do a quick introduction.
April Richards is the SBIR program manager for the EPA.
Let's see.
Slides look great over here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That's what I was going to ask. All right. Well, thank you. My name is April Richards, and I am representing the thinnest slice of the cheesecake today. So, but we always say small but mighty. We have a really great mission, and I'm really happy to speak to this crowd today because we really need some Alabama proposals. We're really short on Alabama projects, so really happy to be here today and get the word out. And let's see if I can advance. All right, so I always start with the mission. We're a mission-focused agency, and I happen to personally love the mission of EPA, which is to protect human health and the environment. And so we're using our SBIR program to seed technologies that will help us meet that mission. And as one of the smaller SBIR agencies, we do not do STTR. And then my joke is always that to save the planet, we have about $5 million a year. So we really are doing the best we can with a very modest budget. Like other small agencies, we're doing one funding cycle per year, which at least keeps it kind of simple. So you know more or less when we're going to release our call for proposals and when we're going to review proposals and when we make awards. Phase structure is the same. Again, our award amounts are just a little smaller so we can make enough awards. And we do everything as contracts. So what makes EPA different? So really, I think for us, think about topics. I think if you have a topic that fits one of our topic needs, then we try to make the topic specific enough that our success rate is attractive to you, the small business. So that's what I think would be appealing for us to you guys if you happen to see a topic that you think you could address with your technology. And then once funded, the upside of having a smaller program is we work pretty closely with our companies. We try to connect every project we fund with someone at EPA that has technical background or interest in the topic area that really could help you connect dots or understand what EPA is doing. Again, we have a small budget, so we hit the ground running with commercialization. Like the commercialization review for phase 1 is kind of the same as it is for phase 2. We really want you to have thought of commercialization early and often. And I'm a very strong believer in communications. I do think that a lot of success for these projects is self-perpetuating. So we work really hard we use social, and we use our website, and we have a newsletter, and we just do everything we can to help get the word out about our companies. And of course, we're helping to protect the planet. So oftentimes companies that apply to us really care about impact. They want to make money, they want to commercialize, they want to do all the right things, but they want to have impact too. And that's very satisfying. So, and it just so happens that our one funding opportunity literally just closed. So we missed it, but that's okay. You can get ready for next year. I'll talk about the topics just a little bit. So if there is a topic of interest, put that on your radar screen. The best thing about this page right here is our listserv. If you have any interest in EPA topics, please subscribe. It's really easy. And then we won't spam you too much, but we'll send you out as soon as we know topics and dates, we'll send you those. Our office does challenges and prizes sometimes. So if there's something that might be appropriate to a small business in the environmental space, then you might get something interesting in that newsletter. So let me talk about topics, because again, I think this is my hook. We have these broad focus areas that stay largely the same from year to year, and they kind of align pretty much with the way EPA is structured. And some might seem sort of obvious to you, right? Like our mission areas include clean water, air quality and climate. Some folks may not know that we do some homeland security, connected with kind of environmental side of things, but connected with water and connected with cleanup. We have sustainable materials and circular economy. So we do a lot of materials work. And I feel like that's a really impactful area for the environment. We're looking for safer chemicals, and we have a little bit of risk assessment. So again, just to dig a little deeper on topics, like these were our topics this year. Again, this just closed, so these are just for reference, but it kind of tells you the specificity that we're looking for, the number of topics, etc. But I just highlighted a few. I kind of didn't know what the breadth of biotech was, so I hope maybe I'll learn some more as I listen to the talks today. But we are like other agencies, we're topic agnostic. Always say all we do is identify the problems and then you have to solve them. And we don't care what type of technology you use as long as it helps us address these environmental issues. So we're looking for things like water reuse. So that's definitely got a bio component. We're looking for sensors for contaminants in water. So again, those could be biocontaminants or biosensors. The circular economy and sustainable materials, we have food waste, we have recycling, and we have plastics. All of those have potential for biomaterials, biosolutions. And then we had one topic that was kind of ag related today with fertilizers, not today, this round. So again, I think, so those were just some examples that I thought would be appropriate for biotech, but I do think there's probably others on this list that you all would be able to help us solve. So I'm kind of motoring here, but this is the way we review proposals, and we've worked really hard to streamline this. So we're currently, from the time the solicitation closes to the day the awards start, it's 120 days. And so we're doing reviews concurrently. We're looking at, we have a commercial review and then a technical and relevancy review. And again, just to dive a little bit more into that, that's what we're looking at. That's our criteria. Each of those is 1/3. And I do think general advice for most of federal agencies, we're very process oriented. So if you're going to apply, definitely address all of the review criteria to the best of your ability. That's how you're going to get your score on your proposal. So maybe not every criterion is your strong point, but definitely address them all so that you get the best possible score you can to keep you in the mix for funding. Okay, and this is kind of my take-home messages, like if you were applying, and obviously you can't apply now, but hopefully somebody will next year. You got to make sure your technology fits the topic. Definitely, like others have suggested, I really welcome you reaching out to me to talk about your technology. Kind of give you some advice of whether I think it fits the topic areas. Of course, read the solicitation carefully. There's a lot of registrations required for SBIR. It's a great program. It's non-dilutive. We don't take any, you don't have to pay it back, but it is the government, and there's at least 3 or 4 registrations required for every agency. So don't let that be what holds you up if you prepare a great proposal and then for example, your SAM registration isn't done, which there's a lot of issues with SAM right now. Develop a strong, readable proposal. This is another one of my little pet peeves. I think people often create great proposals, but they're so technical and they're so detailed, and it's not totally sure what the impact would be, or can't get excited about how the environment might be protected. So maybe have someone else review your proposal, make sure it's readable, have a layperson read it, and make sure that that excitement and potential impact is conveyed along with all of the other technical and commercial points. I mentioned the review criteria, and don't wait until the last minute. Again, just literally our solicitation closed and I can see someone applied 5 minutes late, but we cannot accept that proposal. So don't blow it there either. Like, don't do all of that hard work and then wait to the last minute. All right. Am I doing okay for time? I feel like I'm talking really fast.
Oh no, I actually gave you an extra minute. I think is
an extra minute.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just highlight a couple. Again, these are success stories that I thought were sort of relevant to the biotech space. Again, water treatment, wastewater treatment is very fundamental to EPA's mission. So we're always looking for technologies there. This is Microbi in California, and they use microorganisms in their process to remove nutrients and then recover those materials to make a valuable byproduct. So we love that life cycle approach to taking what would be a waste and making it a commodity, and also cleaning the water. So that's one example. And then one of our favorite companies is Ecovative. These are folks that are making mushrooms. No, they're not making mushrooms. They're making materials out of mushrooms, and they have had success making packaging, construction materials. They moved into clothing, as you can see from this jacket. They are making bio-based foods now. And it's just a very cool, disruptive technology to replace something like styrofoam for one thing in packaging, but to also to replace other petroleum-based feedstocks. And that's it. That's me. It's kind of me in the program. I have one person that works with me, so all questions can come my way, and I prefer email. And again, there's that listserv. If any of those topics like struck your fancy, feel free to sign up for our listserv. And then you'll get the information as soon as it's available. And I guess just one more point, that 2019 data that Jim had, that was a weird year for us. That looks super high. Our program is small, so often 1 or 2 awards can really skew it, but we also had like a very weird year where we had a low application rate. So our success rate is typically like 15 to 20%, but it's certainly not quite as high as that 2019 data might indicate.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, Megan, I'll hand it over to you to introduce our next speaker.
Okay, our next agency is NASA. So we're going to have Mike Vinhay, who works in the Kennedy Space Center's Research and Technology Management Office. And he leads the Kennedy Space Center Small Business Innovation Research activities and assist with technology development. Mike?
Hi, everybody. Appreciate being invited. And I think what I'll try to do is, as I bring up my presentation, I'll try to focus on some of the stuff that might be innovative or different, or just to add a little bit. So my apologies in advance if everybody's heard a few of these things a couple of times in a row, but as you could expect, the programs have a lot of similarities. And I think, are we sharing my screen at this point?
Yes. You can see.
Okay. So you got a presentation in front of you. Excellent. Okay, so what I'd like to go ahead and do, I'll go and switch to presentation mode. Rather than spend a lot of time on the intro that you guys all know about the whole SBIR program that goes through the different agencies, one little nugget. DoD folks tend to say SBIR, and NASA and some other folks say SBIR. I think SBIR is kind of cuter, but hey, what do I know? I'm going to skip through. Forgive me for. Let's start here. One thing I want to get across for how NASA works with our SBIR and STTR companies. We definitely are putting folks in on the front lines on our missions. We typically have, on a given year, it's an annual solicitation. We typically have a little bit over 100 different research subtopics, and they're spread up into some different areas that I'll show you in a second. But in general, we really like to leverage and get as much as we can out of the SBIR program. And what we're trying to do all the time is to essentially guess what hardware we need on the shelf ready to go 3.5 years from now. And so there are times when we don't quite get it right, or when the agency is going a slightly different direction to where we have some technology that doesn't have as long of a runway in terms of infusion, but I think that happens with a lot of different agencies, of course. I've given these charts over so people are welcome to look at them in detail, but I want to kind of stop on the one. Okay, I'll stop here for just a second. Similar specs to the other programs. We're also very interested in trying to figure out how to leverage money. So post phase 2, we've got a couple of different ways that we like to try to help draw some end user money in, and then we can match it. I think a lot of the different programs from different agencies do that sort of thing. I just want to bring this up as this is something to be thinking about as early as when you win your phase 1 award and you start working your phase 1 award. I think from then on, you should be starting to think about how to make your phase 2 proposal really responsive, but also what kind of runway can you get so that you can go even beyond your phase 2 proposal. So for folks, for companies that are just around that time period, I think it's worth thinking how your phase 2 and beyond plan is going to be structured. I'm going to stop here for a second. And can everybody see this page fine? It's the website. Just want to make sure everybody can see what my charts.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thank you. So I want to give a quick 15-minute version for all the companies on how they should look for NASA, SBIR, STTR opportunities. So here's the quick way of doing this. You go to our website, you click on the solicitations tab, and you pull down the last year's tab or last year's solicitation. In my case, I usually prefer downloading the Word document or the PDF and doing a word search, keyword search inside the solicitation itself. That'd be my suggestion. So for your company, for your technology, pick 6 or 7, 8 different keywords that kind of make you a little unique compared to everybody else. And don't even bother reading the solicitation. Just put those keywords in and see what you pop up in terms of research topics that contain the keywords. The reason I suggest that is because, like maybe some of the other solicitations that are out there, ours is the first 2/3 of it's a lot of legalese sort of stuff. You really have to dig to get into the research topics, and this would be the more expedited way to do that. But when your keyword does pop up a research subtopic, at the header of the research subtopic is the lead center that is running that subtopic. And on the same page here, all the way over to the top right, you see where it says contact us. Every representative for every center has their contact information on this website. So in my case, if you were to go across a subtopic that Kennedy Space Center was leading, my suggestion would be to go to the contact us part of the website, find my information for Kennedy Space Center and say, hi, I'm a company that's interested in talking to someone about this specific subtopic. And that's the best way to get some dialogue going before we actually are getting close to the new solicitation coming out. Our NASA solicitation comes out once a year in January. And once the solicitation does come out, unfortunately, we go into a whole blackout period. So it's best to be talking to us between now and the beginning of the year if you have some interest. And we really like to focus these sorts of discussions on the previous year's solicitation that's out on this webpage. The reason is because that's all publicly available information. And frankly, we don't change those subtopics all that quickly anyway. So you will be able to get a pretty responsive read of how things are looking by discussing the publicly available information from last year. So that would be my suggestion as far as a way of efficiently, one, finding out if your company has some interest in NASA subtopics, and two, how to make the connection through that webpage. I want to spend another couple of moments here. This is the different areas that NASA, SBIR, STTR subtopics are spread out in. So we do have quite a few different ones. On the right-hand side, for example, FA16, that's an area that Kennedy Space Center is the lead of. So if it has to do with getting a rocket ready to launch and actually going through the launch processes and all that technology associated with that, that's an area that we lead. When we're talking about biology and bioscience in general, I would say that that's kind of scattered throughout a lot of these different subject areas within the NASA portfolio. And that's part of why I would suggest using a keyword search. For example, you're going to find FA6, Life Support and Habitation Systems, has some content in there. And it could be things either from how to do antimicrobial coatings for the HVAC system inside a spaceship, all the way to how to grow crops. And that is one thing I do want to emphasize for NASA. Essentially, we are really running the whole gamut of what technology needs to be developed in order to bring some version of Earth along with us. And I realize that's a pretty radical thing to say, but essentially inside our spacecraft on our long duration types of trips, or when we're doing our sustained presence on the moon, for example, the Artemis launch that we're trying to get off this Monday. The whole way that we do sustained activities in space is that we're getting better and better and better about bringing along our own crops, growing our own food, and closing that loop as much as we can so that we have less logistics that we have to rely on coming from Earth. So that's a really big push in a lot of different directions for this particular conference. I think there's a lot of opportunities in areas where, for example, you might have something like an inedible part of a crop, that inedible part could be reprocessed and used for like 3D printer input material to make 3D parts, for example. Just different things like that. Anything we can do to close the loop. Also, we have different topics that are out there that have to do with regular agricultural activities, but do them in zero gravity. For example, we've had some problems over the years where we're growing crops on the International Space Station, and it's been a lot of progress. We were able to grow for the first time several years ago, astronauts were able to actually grow their own crop and actually eat it in space. And that happened through equipment that was developed from SBIR technologies from SBIR companies. So we do actually get everybody mixed in to that sort of work. But that same technology area, for example, we ran into some real challenges for how do you go and water the plants. because without gravity there to conveniently get the water down where the roots are, how do you go about solving that? It turns out that electrostatics spray technology, similar to what you use in the car industry to spray paint car bodies, is a good solution. So we're always interested in having people from a different perspective approach our problems, and interested to see what they do. So I think this is probably the main parts I'd want to say. There is biological research and development happening in different parts of NASA. Some of it's human research program, like related to the human body. Others are related more to how do we reduce logistics, how do we grow our own supplies, and still others. I think we're looking more and more with interest at different ways of growing things rather than building things, just in a general sense. So I would be encouraging for the crowd to be looking at our solicitation and doing a little search. And I think after this, I've got just one quick thing I was going to mention here. Probably a big change between other agencies that you have to work with and us. We do have our research topics, we do have our needs, we have the funding, we have the contracts, but to actually get the technology up to where it's going to be used requires a whole lot of testing. And things like microgravity flights and stuff like that might be part of the overall plan in order to get the technology finally ready to go to space. So it's a little bit of an extra wrinkle, but well worth it. And then let's see I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but let me stop. Let me give you just a little example here. Because the space industry has been picking up quite a bit lately, we're starting to see some really nice momentum happen out of some of our companies. Here's an example here. Astrobotic was actually a group of Carnegie Mellon researchers who put together some initial STTR proposals about technology to allow for free landing systems to go and land autonomously on surfaces like the moon. Kennedy Space Center is mixed in with this company right at the very beginning, and over the years they've been able to expand their capabilities. And I would argue that this company, Astrobotic, now is something of a prime in the aerospace business. They are actually one of the commercial lunar payload service providers. They are giving rides to the moon as part of their business portfolio now, and they got to start way back in the SBIR and STTR phase 1 and phase 2 contracts. So good to see them. And I think we have some more in here. And in the interest of time, everybody's welcome to take a look at these charts. This is from earlier. This was the solicitation that came out this year. But generally, between now and January is a good time for you to do some digging into the solicitation, see if there's any specific subtopics that have a lot of resonance for you and your company. Take a look at that lead center that's at the top of the subtopic and shoot an email, and we see if we can have a conversation. And I think with that, I'm ready to hand it back.
Thank you so much, Mike. Anyone who has had a conversation with me in Alabama knows that I am super excited to see us explore potential for space bio more fully. So I hope that your breakout session is really full. We have saved Army, and then we will go to NSF, which Jim will probably cover. So Dr. Matt or Megan, if you'll do the introductions for Army.
Yes, we have Dr. Matt Willis, who leads the Army's portfolio of private sector engagements through prize competitions and the Army SBIR program. Dr. Willis.
Great. Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I apologize in advance for my camera not working. But let me try to see if I can get this work. Is this? Can you see my screen, or at least my presentation?
We do.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. I think you will certainly see variation on a theme, and so I'll try not to repeat anything that my interagency colleagues have already provided. But to start off with, so again, I'm Matt Willis. I work for the Army. I'm the director for Army prize competitions and the Army SBIR program. So when you think about the Army, particularly from the lens of, let's say, a biotech perspective, or really, even broader perspective, right? The things, that we invest in through the SBIR program are quite broad. If you think about anything, any technology that a soldier could potentially leverage. So anything from, April during, her presentation on the EPA was talking about some, water purification technologies. So those are, for instance, some of the things that we're investing in through our program, to also include other climate and clean tech initiatives, initiatives that support, vehicle technologies, weapon systems technologies, other platforms, AI, ML. I'd say, across the board, the Army is fairly unique in that, our portfolio from a scientific and engineering perspective is probably one of the most broad, within the SBIR and STTR programs writ large. So in terms of how our program is organized, so we have both SBIR and STTR portfolios. In general or overall, the total investment on an annual basis is about $375 million. So we're the smallest of the three services amongst the Air Force, Navy, and the Army, but again, pretty broad in terms of the different technology areas that we invest in. From an SBIR perspective, we actually have two distinct portfolios. One that focuses primarily on modernization, and that's managed out of the Army Futures Command. So that's focusing on technologies that are relatively far term. They might transition in the 5, 10, 15-year time frame. The other portion of the portfolio over here is the transition focused portfolio. So that's where we are really trying to be deliberate about investing in technologies that will transition into the hands of the soldiers within the next 5 to well, even less than that, let's say 3 to 5 years. And all these technologies are the investment areas are defined by our customers across the Army. So again, I think that's another thing that's worth pointing out, for the DoD, really writ large in our programs, is we're not only investing in technology for the sake of investing in technologies, right? We are investing in R&D technologies to support specific capability that we're trying to develop. So not only are we investing in the development of the R&D or the development of the technology, but we're also potentially an end user or a client at the end. So we're really looking at the holistically the full spectrum of the problem. Again, identifying what our needs are, using that to identify the projects that we invest in through the SBIR program, and again, trying to bring those to maturity and to transition. So in terms of our structure, again, this is going to be, I'd say, somewhat similar to or a variation on the theme to what you've already heard this afternoon. But really within the Army, we're really trying to be as flexible, responsive, and agile as possible. So in terms of our award structures, typically we follow the same structure of doing a proof of concept phase 1 up to $250,000, typically 4 to 6 months. And then that can go into phase 2 projects, which is typically up to $1.75 or $1.8 million in 12 to 18 months. And there's opportunities for further awards as well. But really what I'll say, and again, the differentiator for us is we're really trying to cater to Army needs, and understanding that our needs are not temporal, right? They're not always defined by having a solicitation open at one specific period of time every single year. So in fact, we release projects on a rolling basis. Basically, every single month, we're releasing new topic solicitations. And this is really aimed at the fact that, we are, releasing topics and developing projects that support a specific Army need with a specific transition milestone in mind. So again, if there's an opportunity to transition to an Army customer in 24 months, then we will, work our way backwards to say, what's the right acquisition strategy to get there? So again, this is a bit more free form than some of the other agencies, but again, it's intended to provide more flexibility to really focus on technology transition. So in terms of some of the data from last year. So, and this only represents this table on the top right represents the portion of the budget that focused on transition. But we released 45 different topics again throughout the year, and awarded well, essentially over 400 small businesses received projects under that. And again, as I've said before, and I'll say again, and certainly happy to answer more questions during the breakout sessions, but we do have norms, so the typical award structure, but we're really designed to fit reality and to be flexible, right? So rather than saying that every SBIR or every STTR project has the exact same funding requirements and the exact same length, and has to fall in a very specific sequence, we rely on our customers, so our Army customers, our transition partners, to again identify what the needs are, so then we can be as agile and responsive to their needs as we possibly can. So that includes having awards that potentially are above the Small Business Administration dictated limits. We also have some direct awards. We, again, are really focusing on the end of mind and trying to drive flexibility into the program. And I will say, recognizing that having topics released every month isn't as predictable, but, we really try to stay on top of publicizing when new opportunities are available. So certainly within the Army SBIR and STTR website, which is armysibir.army.mil. We also have social media aliases on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and so if you follow those, we're always releasing new topic and new project opportunities. So I'd say those are the relatively passive ways. We also have a listserv as well. So in terms of who can participate, we've already really talked about this, but it's, the SBA has specified, specific, requirements for companies, US based, up to 500 employees, R&D, of course, happening in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of the technology areas, so again, I've sort of already spoken to this, and that the Army is quite broad in terms of the different domains that we invest in. That being said, we have identified a few technology areas that the program is focusing on, and the way that these were identified were, first and foremost, there's applicability to Army technology systems. There are also technology domains where the private sector far outpaces the Army's organic capabilities. So these are areas where there's already a tremendous amount of private sector investments, and we believe the Army's resourcing can really synergize with private sector investments that are already happening in this space. And these areas are shown here on this slide. I think that you will find that across the biotech space, there is a tremendous amount of overlap. certainly within the sensor spaces, within climate and clean tech. Wearables is, I'd say, biotech adjacent, depending on how you define a wearable technology. And there's also, as I'm sure the audience here is much more familiar than I am, but within artificial intelligence, machine learning, there's certainly an expanding and interest in how we can apply those tools to the biotech arena. So I would say, in terms of how you can get involved or understand the different projects and technologies that we're investing in through the Army's SBIR and STTR programs, is certainly to, like I said, go to our website, sign up for the listserv, follow our social media profiles. You can also send an email to our mailbox. It's the longest email address on earth here, but you go to our website, there's a little link where you can send something automatically. So again, I'm happy to go into detail on any of these during the breakout sessions. And again, I appreciate the opportunity this afternoon to chat.
Dr. Willis, thank you so much. That really is the longest email I've ever seen. I'll need to fix that. But thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions in the breakout session. So I'll go ahead and hand over to Jim, who's going to give us a brief overview of NSF. And then Alastair Monk should be joining us for the breakout session. Jim?
All right. Thanks. Yeah, I'm your designated hitter for NSF here. Let me see if I can find the right. Not sure that's the right one. It's a review. Yeah, show all. I don't know why Zoom hasn't done a better job with this, so that they can more readily bring up the file here. All right, hold on a second here. Let me. I've got my nice little NIH file here. There we go. Okay, now I can pull it up. Someone hum some elevator music here real quick, and I'll.
I feel like Kareem should be able to come up with something entertaining. Kareem, I'm counting on you.
Yep. All right, let me go to full view.
Should I start with a joke
screen.
or just sing? If I sing, everybody will run away. So that would not be a good idea.
I just know I can call you out and you'll be fine with it. So we're just stalling.
All right, are we up on that? Does it show now? Hopefully.
Looks great.
Perfect. All right, great. All right. Appreciate your, and by the way, it's not that I don't have any credentials for speaking for NSF. I am an NSF reviewer and have been for about a decade. Am called in, like most NSF reviewers, sporadically to serve on review panels. Last one, I think, was this June. Again, as a reminder, NSF is in your big five. It's actually, as of FY19, NSF and NASA kind of jockey back and forth as to who's number 4 and who's number 5, and NSF was up to number 4 in 2019. It is a grant agency. In fact, they consider themselves to be the ultimate grant agency, which I'll mention here in a minute. Some changes that occurred this most recent go around. Interestingly, as Matt was describing, Mike was describing, NASA has separated SBIR and STTR. NSF was combining SBIR and STTR into a single solicitation. They created the windows, which I mentioned earlier, with the current one closing on the 26th of October. I thought they were going to make quarterly windows. They'd have 4 quarterly windows, but one of the program officers mentioned in a session that I was involved in that they were trying to go to 4-month-long windows. They only have 3 per year, obviously. because it was taking that long for the NSF staff to go through all the process of receiving, screening, reviewing, selecting, and negotiating grants. So they were trying to go to 4 months, but they've not set anything up after October 26th. So I don't know if they're going to go with 3 months, 4 months, or what they'll do in terms of their windows. Content was not changed much from their previous year. They did raise their funding limits to $275K for phase 1 and a little change to the bio format. The place to look for NSF topics, and by the way, they tell you can send anything on any topic and it will be considered responsive at NSF. So that's one of the things that makes NSF really popular, is if you can't find any other agency that'll accept your proposal, NSF will accept it. They have, I'll show you here in a minute, 29 topics, very broad topics, and then number 30 is other. I've always wanted to review for other. I think that must be a really odd batch of proposals that get tossed into other. But the guide you'll want to see is the solicitation topic and subtopic listing here. And as an example, this was under advanced manufacturing. They give you kind of a broad paragraph on that topic and then tell you that they've got 10 subtopics, which are perhaps a little more specific, but then there's no description to any of them. So again, they don't want you to worry too much about whether you feel that you fit into M6 versus M4 or something like that, but they want to give you an idea of some of the categories of subtopics that they're interested in. Here are the 30 topics, and there's some really interesting ones like space. When you think space, you think NASA, you think Department of Air Forces, Space Force, Space Development Agency. At least I don't think of NSF, but they created space as one of their 30 topics several years back. More relevant to our discussion today, there's digital health in there, medical devices, pharmaceutical technologies, biological technologies. So there are a number of these very broad topics, which certainly would fit some of the things that we're discussing today. Because they'll accept a proposal on any topic, they can get inundated with proposals coming in. Therefore, they have limited you to one proposal per company per window. So if you submitted a proposal today for the October 26th window, you could not submit another one until the next window opened. They're very proud of the breadth. Again, any topic, submit a proposal. Something I don't think they do as good a job on, and very important, is they're very narrow in the kinds of projects that they want. So yeah, you can send a proposal in on any topic, but it better fit 2 criteria. Criteria number 1 is, and this is NASA NSF terminology, revolutionary or transformational with exceptionally high technical risks. So they don't want slam dunks, they don't want minor modifications, they don't want enhancements, they want revolutionary stuff. So they really want you to come in with something that's really thinking outside of the box, and also, frankly, that is not very well developed at this point. If you've already done a lot of work in the area, then they are not as interested in it as something that's just right fresh, just at just come off your thought process and you haven't really done much with it yet. And at the same time, they want this high technical risk and revolutionary ideas. They want it to be something that will have great commercial potential should it work out. So the example I use of what seems like kind of a contradictory set of criteria would be, go back 36 months. And we're all sitting around wondering what will happen with the pandemic, and someone's talking about a vaccine, and you're thinking, wow, that's got to be very risky because how long it takes to develop something like that, and all of the variables, and how little we know about the pandemic. But at the same time, if it works, the commercial potential is incredible because it's there's a worldwide market for it. So that's the kind of project that NSF wants to fund, is that, just a really technically risky, but boy, if it pays off big time financially. I do think that NSF has a bias, although it's an uneven bias, towards startups. Now, if you're a startup company, that's great. If you're a 10-year-old company, that's not good news. You're a 4-year-old company, you're going, well, what's a startup? And I don't think there's a real clear definition of what NSF would say is a startup or not a startup. But I think this is a little bit of an oddity of NSF, and I don't necessarily agree with it. In fact, I don't agree with it. But their position is, and you saw that on a number of the agency's slides. It's America's seed fund. SBIR is America's seed fund. And some of the NSF program directors and officers have said, well, seed means seeding small companies, to get them going, get them started. So we're going to emphasize startups. Well, I don't believe that's what the intent of the programs is, nor what the congressional direction is. They want to seed innovation. So the seeding is innovation, and innovation can occur from a small business, whether it's brand new, or it's 10 years old, or 20 years old, or 50 years old. It can still have innovative ideas that I think should be considered. But I want you to be aware of this bias, which could work for you if you are a fairly new company, and something that you may have to deal with if you are a more mature business. And boy, I think I did less than 7 minutes. I didn't get called down. I didn't get any sort of gesture on the screen, so I think I must be done on time.
Doing great. Thank you so much, Jim. And I did see that Alistair has joined. So
does he get a 5-minute rebuttal?
I think we'll let him take the breakout session to do any rebuttal work.
Okay.
And because we are at 1:48, and I want to give everyone a little bit of a break just to go grab some food, get a drink of water, whatever you need before we start our breakout sessions. But what will happen is I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and you will have a chance to join whichever, they'll be titled with whichever agency is going to be in that room. So if you are an agency representative, please choose the correct room. I will not be assigning you automatically. Then participants, you can choose which agency to attend for your first session, and then we will come back after 30 minutes. I will close those rooms, and then I will reopen them so that we can have a second concurrent session. And you will choose your second room again. So that is how it's going to work. I will go ahead and tell everyone just meet back here at 1:55, and we'll be maybe 1:54, and we'll be opening the rooms then.
Okay. See everybody in a few minutes.
All right, it is 1:54. So if you have not already selected a room, go ahead. I'm here if anyone has any questions.
Rachel, it just occurred to me, I'm not astute at these. It's across the bottom. There's a menu across the bottom, and one of them is breakout rooms, and that's where we pick it. So I just found that. So maybe I'm the only dense one here, but
no, that's good to know. I wasn't sure how it was showing up on your screen. I can see the room starting to fill up. It looks like we have 9 in NIH, 3 in NSF, 2 in NOAA, 2 in NASA, 2 at EPA, 8 in Army, and 4 in Air Force. So people are figuring it out.
yeah, there we go. All right.
Sushma sent me a message. Sushma, did you figure it out?
Not yet.
Okay, go to down at the bottom where it says more and go to breakout rooms. See if you can then join. If not, I can send you over to wherever you want to. Just tell me.
Thanks, I got it.
Okay, excellent. Pamela, do you need help getting to the NIH? Saw your message. Okay. Del, Greg, Liz, y'all need any help finding your rooms?
All right, I just stepped away and came back, so.
That's fine. If you go down to more and then breakout
Yeah,
rooms.
sorry, I just came back too.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Just want to make sure everyone gets where they need to. You can go to breakout rooms and you can select, or if you want to tell me where to send you, I can do that too.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I see Ore, Ashley, Hillary, Lucinda, Terry, Michael, Greg. Any of y'all need help finding your rooms?
This is Gary. I've just joined the whole thing, so I don't have a room. I missed the first part of it. I had a
that's fine.
So
that's fine.
I'm not sure where I should be.
That's fine. You can go down to more and you can go to breakout rooms and choose which agency you'd like to learn more about with the agency rep, or if you want to tell me, I can also just assign you.
Since I'm on my phone, why don't you tell me what are the choices?
We have NIH, NSF, NOAA, NIH. All right, I'll send you right over there. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Great, see you later.
Thank you. Hey, do you know, is the whole thing being recorded?
Yes, we are recording it.
A replay? Okay, great.
The breakout sessions, we're having local recorders. Yep.
Perfect, thanks. So I hit join and that's it? Okay.
Should work.
Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Ashley Brown, did you need to go anywhere? If you're Clear Fertility, I didn't know if maybe NIH was a good fit. Just let me know. Great.
Got to find the right file. It just baffles me how Zoom doesn't kind of keep track of the files that you just had open most often. I mean, there's some stuff that shows me that I had closed this morning. So this is an interesting one. Yeah, that's NSF, that's intro. All right, let me go back down here and see if I can. There's probably something I just don't know how to do is the problem. Now, having done that, let me see if I can now try to do the screen share again. Aha, there it is. Okay. Okay, kind of for our closeout before we go into our final Q&A, we wanted to do a quick session on, gee, you got some ideas about what agency to participate with and maybe some ideas for topics. How do you go about submitting the proposal? So we want to kind of address that in a very abbreviated fashion here, given the lateness of the day. We talk about a 7-step process here. I'll go through this relatively briefly. First is you got to find a topic. Finding a topic is basically going into the solicitation. You've heard the term today. I just want you to know that some of the agencies don't use that term. They like a different term. So you'll hear the term FOA, or Funding Opportunities Announcement, at some of the agencies. BAA at some of the agencies. Actually, we should have had Genevieve do this. Hers is a NOFO. I think that's the coolest sounding one. It's a NOFO that she puts out, which is a Notice of Funding Opportunity. Basically, you want to find the solicitation so you can find the topic, and that will be found on the website. You have to respond to one of these solicitations. You can't just send in a proposal. So the way to find the topic, or the best way, in my opinion, is to do keyword searching, because as we talked about before, earlier session, you don't know what agency is going to have the topic that might be the best fit for you. I was just in the breakout room for NSF, and I was surprised to see Alistar presented a slide that shows that over a quarter of NSF's SBIR funding goes into life sciences. And I was just shocked by that. I knew they had a substantial program there, but I never thought that they had that much. And they're in digital health and medical technologies in a lot of fields that, again, people that ordinarily would think about NIH might not think that NSF would be a candidate for that. And I'm fascinated by Mike's comments too about growing the food on the NASA missions. We actually worked with the SBIR company, at least one of the SBIR companies that he mentioned early on, that we're working on that technology. How do you grow food if you're in weightlessness? So how do you find what agencies might be interested in your technology? Go to the SBIR.gov. Again, this is the official SBIR website for the federal government. click on funding, you'll pull down a menu, and under topics, click on open, and you'll get basically a screen that says, what do you want to search for? And you put in keywords and it will search for you. Now, the biggest problem with that search engine is on the date that I shot this particular screenshot, SBIR.gov, the official government website, said, oh, there's only 3 agencies looking for solicitations right now, the 3 that I've listed there. In reality, I knew on that date that there were actually 6 different opportunities, including the military, including NSF, 2 of the largest agencies in SBIR STTR. They had no topics listed in the search engine. And of course, the obvious question would be, well, why the heck is that? Well, it turns out SBA runs a search engine, and it's basically depending on the voluntary participation of the 11 agencies to put their topics into it. And the military just hadn't gotten around to it, and NSF had not gotten around to it. So it's the official search engine, but you can't depend on it because it's not necessarily going to have all of the agencies participating in it or not. So if you're interested in, and you think maybe the military might be a candidate, there is a search engine there. The website shown up above here for the Defense SBIR STTR Innovation Portal. And again, you can pull down the menu and do keyword search there. Grants.gov is somewhere you can search for a lot of the grant agencies. Remember, we talked before about contract versus grant agencies. If it's a grant agency, most likely the topics will be in grants.gov, but it turns out that NSF doesn't use grants.gov for their submission, and their topics don't tend to be in grants.gov search engine either. So, again, as we said before session, you can always use the NSF's topic and subtopic guide, but remember that any topic, any field, any technology is a valid topic for NSF to consider. All right, so you find the topic, then you want to talk to the agency, and you go, well, why would I want to do that? Well, first of all, it's one way to learn more about a specific topic. What you get in the topic descriptions, and you saw the sample earlier from NSF, there's kind of a paragraph kind of generally about advanced manufacturing, and then there's a bunch of subtopics with no description with them. So you might want to talk with them more about what is intended by that particular topic or one of the subtopics. DoD is famous for having page-long topic descriptions, but still not enough detail to really give you a comfort level that you know what they want and whether your idea will be aligned with what they want. So it's an opportunity to get more information about the topic. Opportunity also to get a feel for the agency. You may talk to them and hang up the phone and said, what a bunch of buffoons. Why would I want to work with these people? They're crazy. Well, then it's good to know that before you write a proposal, right? It's also an opportunity for you to kind of introduce yourself to the agency, so when your proposal shows up, it's not brand new to them. They kind of remember you from the phone conversation. So who you want to talk to, different terminology will be used for different people, but what you want, in my opinion, is the person as close as you can get to the topic itself, who wrote the topic, responsible for the topic, preferably someone who's responsible for even reviewing the topic or picking the reviewers for the topic. So the military, you'll hear terms like TPOC, TPOC, the technical point of contact. Topic manager is a term that DOE likes to use. But again, talking to individuals within the SBIR office may be appropriate. I think probably of the agencies we have heard from today, particularly true at EPA, that April would be an excellent resource to begin your understanding of EPA, and she would put you in touch then with people in various offices of EPA that can help get you more information. When do you do it? Again, when it comes back to this distinction of contract versus grant, a grant agency, anytime you can contact them. If they're willing to answer the phone or write an email, they can do so. They're allowed to do so. The contracting agencies, and you heard Mike say this, that when their solicitation comes out, he can't talk to you. His people can't talk to you about any of the topics. They're not allowed. It wouldn't be, this gets a little bit deep into federal procurement, but it's a fairness of opportunity issue. And the feeling is it wouldn't be fair for NASA to talk to one of you about your questions about their topic and not share that with somebody else. So I'm not going to get on my soapbox and tell you what I think of that fairness of opportunity situation, but I will tell you there are several agencies, including the military, that have kind of gotten around that fairness of opportunity issue by putting out topics in draft form. So when DoD puts out a topic, they always put it out in draft form. They call it pre-release. And for anywhere from about 2 to 4 weeks, it's in draft form and they'll talk to you. You can have a conversation about that topic. After that pre-release period, then they go into the blackout that Mike was talking about that NASA has. How do you communicate? I don't think you just pick up the phone and call somebody and interrupt them, whatever they're doing, and try to get them to talk to you about a topic. Instead, the polite thing would be to send them an email, a little description. You're an SBIR potential applicant. You have an interest in a particular topic. And I would just say something like, may I have 15 minutes of your time anytime within the next week to ask you a couple of questions. And basically you're asking that you're saying you'll be available at their convenience. So you're being polite, and you're also putting them on notice that you're only going to take 15 minutes of their time if they will agree to this. You're not going to get them on the phone for an hour or 2 hours or the afternoon. So you're respectful of their time. I like to try to get them to agree to a phone call because there's 2 reasons. One is people sometimes say things that they wouldn't put in writing. So you might get more rich comments. And second of all, if someone's going to give you 15 minutes of their time, do you want 15 minutes of their time as they type or 15 minutes of their time as they speak? Most people can